Hey, my wonderful sweet baby. So today we're going to be talking about 7 reasons why everybody does not like Chris Brown. So before we get into those 7 reasons, we're first going to be talking about a few updates on what's going on with him. So first, it's going to start with pretty much there being a documentary out on Chris Brown. This documentary is pretty much going to be highlighting the DV cases that he has had, as well as A allegations as well. Had to come up with some words because I know how sensitive these apps are, so bear with me. So it appears that the people that produced Quiet on Set, where they were pretty much slandering Dan Schneider and, putting out light on who Dan Schneider is as a person and as a person in Hollywood, has now decided to drift into Chris Brown. And they're saying that, with this new documentary that they're coming up with, this is supposed to be the only way that they can get Chris Brown to stop doing the things that he has been doing over the course of the years. And I have a few little stills of the documentary because the trailer actually officiated yesterday. So pretty much, it does go over the course of 20 years that he's been doing his career, which, Chris Brown has had a pretty lengthy career. And they pretty much highlight everything that we've seen thus far with him. And it pretty much goes back to when we first ever met Chris Brown. And then they also talk about, some statistics and things like that they mention as well. And of course, it wouldn't be anything if they didn't mention the situations that happened with him and Rihanna. And of course, him and Carrot Cake. And then they, blurred out the images of a few new girls that are, I'm assuming, going to be in the documentary. And I'm not exactly sure who this is, but they also mentioned her as well in the documentary. And then they had several stills of the countless times that he was in court. And this is pretty much the outing of the trailer as well. And I believe the name of the documentary is Chris Brown, A History of Violence. So here's my thoughts. I'm just going to do my thoughts now because I'll be putting in a little bit of my takes when we talk about the 7 reasons as to why people don't like him. I think that once again, this documentary is just another level of people being upset with Chris Brown's success. Of course, we know about the countless times that he's been doing DV, but I feel like Chris Brown isn't like all the rest of these women's baby daddies that are undercover DV people. He has been, publicly a DV person, and we all know the characteristics of how people act when they are, people that do DV, like when they are the accusers or the perpetrators, whichever way you want to describe it. So I feel like because we already see that he is an active participant of being a DV perp, why would you want to get into a relationship with this man? I feel like when it first started with Rihanna, we were just like, whoa, we never seen that coming. But then I just feel like over the course of times, we've seen that it became regulated. So it was kind of like, why continue to keep being in a relationship with this man for the opportunities of what can, come about being with him when you know who he is as a person? And I stated that in a video when I dragged the F out of Carrot Cake because of her getting with Chris Brown so quickly during the times of him going through these allegations with Rihanna. But let's get into these 7 reasons as to why I feel people do not like Chris Brown. So for one, I hate to be that person to bring in, people's ethnic as well as racial backgrounds, but Chris Brown is an African American man or a black man. And we already know how society is when, people of color start to be mentioned. It's unfortunate, but, this world is just as divided as $2 Hoochie's legs when she's got to make that money. So I feel like because of, who he is and what his race is, people are actually not happy that he is as talented as he is. So of course, when people see that you have more talent, you have more substance to you as a character, they're not going to really like you as much. The second reason is his fan base. Chris Brown, he honestly has a fan base that is out of this world. People are always representing Team Breezy, and they're going to stick beside this man regardless of what he has going on. It's like no matter what they say and what kind of allegations comes out on him, people are not going to just turn their backs on him, because we've seen Chris Brown's growth. We've seen him develop as an artist. We've seen him develop as a person, and we've seen him even develop as a father. So for that given reason, we're going to stick beside him. Number 3 is that Black women of darker complexions are actually not a fan of Chris Brown due to his preference in women. Now, although I think that this is a silly reason as to not like him, there are actually women in this world, and even some men, that are upset with Chris Brown for having a preference in the women that he dates. And unfortunately, for that very reason, they do not like him. Number 4 is that although Chris Brown has done his time for the DV allegations that he's had in the past, and he's been open and upfront that he does have a problem and he's done all of his time, people are still not happy about that. I feel like people, in a sense, actually want him to do even more time than the time that he's already done. Even though this man has expressed on a multitude of times that he has a problem with being abusive. And, due to his dapper demeanor and the way that he carries himself, he can't stop women from not liking him. So it just appears that women continuously throw themselves at him, even though he has been very upfront about his DV past. And even if he wasn't upfront about his DV past, he's pretty much showing it through the world that, he has a DV past, and women are still wanting to lay up with this man, be in a relationship with this man, and be chosen by this man. Number 5 is that people actually cannot stand the fact that even though Rihanna and Chris Brown have had this whole situation, he's done his time, and, all of those things, that these two have actually moved forward and became close behind closed doors. Because the whole thing is, the situation in which everybody is upset with Chris Brown about, and the time that he's already, done and everything, him and Rihanna are cool now. But a lot of the times, people just can't get past the fact that he did this to America's sweetheart at that moment. And even if Rihanna came out publicly and admitted that her and Chris Brown were cool, people would still have issues in regards to the fact that he had a DV past. Which is why now I think that they just keep their relationship under wraps. And I don't mean a romantic relationship, I just mean the fact that they're both amicable. Another reason people don't like him is because he defends himself when people come at him some sort of way and try to come at his character. He's going to defend himself each and every time, which is why I absolutely love this man. And then on top of him defending himself, then his fans are also defending him as well. And unfortunately, these are just things that people cannot get behind. And last but not least on this list is the fact that Chris Brown is still relevant as of today. This man came out when I was in middle school, and I am now 30 years old. And he is still relevant, and he still has a lot of new fans coming in that are still, rocking with him. He still has his old fans from when, they came from my generation that are still rocking with him. And he even has some fans that are much older than myself that are still rocking with him. He still has sold out shows. Anytime he hops on a track, people are loving it. And he has truly become a music mogul and icon when it comes to doing music in general. And people hate that. And that's why they're trying to silence him and get him to where he can be in a situation where he's like a lot of people that we used to watch that are no longer even relevant. Because no shade, but Chris Brown came out with like August Alsina, Bow Wow, Trey Songz. Those were like the guys that we loved. And yet Chris Brown's the only one that's still doing stuff. And these haters are really upset and mad about that. But that's my opinion. What's yours?